I realize I'm streaming. Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Annette Feravich with Healthy Mind, Body, Spirit. And I am live here on YouTube. You can find me at Dr. Annette Feravich on YouTube. You can also find me on the internet at www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. I am taking a look right now to see if I am recording this correctly. So I just need to make sure that I am. I know YouTube is recording it, but if YouTube is not recording it, yeah, I gotta go get something else to get this recorded. So, and I can't stop the stream because if I stop the stream, I gotta redo the live thing. So hold on, I gotta step out for just a minute. Not so bad. That wasn't so bad. Okay, other than the fact that I think I'm screaming here. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again for joining me. If you are joining me, and I'm here live almost every Sunday, but here's the thing. You probably, if you follow me at all, are wondering where was I last Sunday, and even the Sunday before that. Sunday before that, I was, let's see, what's today? Yeah, today's Sunday. So last Sunday, of course, was Mother's Day. But I did warn you that I might not be here, and I also should have made a video because the Sunday before that I also wasn't here and made a video afterwards. What I'm doing right now is I'm trying to figure out, because it's a summer schedule for me, so a summer schedule is different, and that means I'm really able to attend a lot more to what is... what's going on here and editing my videos and getting a podcast out there, and also other things have been going on as well. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about today too. Things like triggers, like my dog hasn't been doing well. Of course, that's a horrible thing. And also there have been many events that have been going on that have been triggering me. Family things that have been going on that are triggers for me. And also then, checking the volume, and also then I also had some physical issues as well. One of them being that I slipped and fell, and I had to worry about blood clots. And talking to friends and finding that out. So why am I telling you all of that? Well, because I want you to know, first of all, that I experience a lot of the same things that I'm trying to help you and counsel you with. And also, just kind of figure out along the way as we experience regular things in life, right? So I want you to know that I experience those things too, and to show you ways that might be able to help you deal with triggers that come on in your life, because we all have them. We have triggers, we have disappointments, we have people we depend on that don't come through for us. So disappointments again. We've got disappointments in our workplace, right? We've got so lots of things that happen to us that create, ups and downs, ebbs and flows in our regular lives. And how we handle these things, is, a sign of how well you adapt. They're a sign of your coping skills. They're a sign of your coping mechanisms. And, lots of things then that I really want to talk about, because as you have some physical ailments and then challenges with events in everyday life, this also makes you more susceptible to triggers. And so these are things I want to talk about, and I will probably get back to those a little bit more in my 2-minute health corner. So I started my 2-minute health corner in our last episode, which was on science and beliefs and intuition. And now this one is on, let's take a look at it. We saw that, if you saw the slide right there, it is on, we're going to begin principles of transformation, to understand principles of transformation. So in order to understand the principles, let's see what we're going to start with. Okay, so emotions, associations, and truth. So when we experience things like triggers, for example, did I show you guys that already? I need to do my little video thing that I've got on it. I think I already did it though, just in case. Principles of transformation, emotions, associations, and truth. And so what we're going to do is, should have looped that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, first of all, emotions, because that is the signal of the triggers. That's the signal of the lies that we believe. And remember, all of this that we're talking about all boils down to 2 lies, right? So no matter what our issues are, no matter what our experiences are, no matter what our personalities are, we still always end up boiling our coping skills, mechanisms, adaptations, right? It all boils down to whether or not we believe that we are worthy enough for, fill in the blank, whatever it is, the job, the family life that we want, the love, the respect, the whether or not we're worthy for a lifestyle, right? Whether or not we're worthy to have friends, right? So boils down to whether or not we are worthy, one lie, or are we stuck, right? Are we stuck? And I've got 2 videos out there on those lies, so watch that. But now what I want to do for you is I want to talk to you about how do we get rid of those lies, right? How do we get rid of those lies? And so I was planning on breaking this segment up into 2 different segments, right? So I had, well, let's take a look at the agenda, shall we? Okay, so as you know, this is part 3 of a healthy spirit. Okay, so it's part 3 of a healthy new you in 2022. The part 3 is a healthy spirit, okay? And so we first started looking at a healthy body, and that was part 1. Part 2 is a healthy mind, and now part 3, we're looking at a healthy spirit. For today's agenda, we are again taking a closer look at transformation. And in this closer look, what do we want to do? We want to take a look at what is the goal of transformational therapy, okay? Because transformational therapy is really a way that we are helping you better understand your coping mechanisms, better understand your lies, better understand what you need to uncover to have better health. Number 2, we're going to take a look at how are our emotions important in therapy. So we know they're important. How are they important? What is unique about anger? We're going to take a closer look at anger because it's very important when we're taking a look at emotions. So that's the first part of our look at emotions. After that, we're going to take a look at the second thing, associations. And associations really are a way that we follow our emotions. So we want to take a closer look at the importance of following our emotions when we are hoping to cope better, adapt, transform, help heal ourselves, however you want to say that, right? So, what's the importance in following our emotions? Those are the associations that we need to follow in order to uncover our beliefs. We have heart beliefs, we have head beliefs, and there's somewhere in there is the truth. We want to talk about those because getting to the truth is important for us. Whenever we are trying to adapt and cope and be healthy, it really is about the subtleties of understanding truth. When we don't recognize it in events or in our daily lives or about ourselves, what we end up feeling is we end up feeling cognitive dissonance. And if you look at my series on self-esteem, you can see some of my very first video in my series on self-esteem is on cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is this internal kind of function that we have that activates when our behaviors don't match our principles, right? That we don't match up to our principles. We feel this. Well, that to me is this moral guiding light that we have that may or may not be associated with spirit. I think that it is associated with our spirit. And not only do I think that there we go. And not only do I think that it's associated with our spirit, but I also think that we can see this play out then even in then our natural inclinations as well, right? So what am I saying? I am saying that we have natural inclinations to behave in moral ways, and we know that that's tied to our body because we feel things like cognitive dissonance when we act like hypocrites, when our behaviors don't match our principles or attitudes. Okay? All right. So we want to take a closer look, and then the last thing on that item is so let me say we want to take a closer look at heart beliefs, head beliefs, and what truth is in this as we move along, as we move you along to learning better coping mechanisms. All right, and then the last item that I have on today's agenda is our 2-minute health corner. And I started that last week 2 weeks ago, when I talked about Epstein virus. So hopefully, if you have that, I'm going to be talking to you about things that may not interest you. Some things are going to be, I'm going to talk to you about some things that are going to be directly interest you or be directly related to some of your experiences, right? But some of them will not be, right? Some of you have experienced Epstein virus and you know what I'm talking about. Other people have no idea what I'm talking about. It's not for you. Today in our 2-minute corner, I might cover a couple things, but one of the things for sure I'm going to be covering is I'm going to be talking about the importance of sunscreen today. And I want to give you just a little bit of knowledge on vitamin D and sunscreen. All right, so that will be in our 2-minute corner. But what I want to tell you is I'm going to do this in 2 different segments as I had originally planned, because you know I can kind of go on for a long time as I begin to give you details, and in a effort to give you as much information as I can without overburdening you, I am going to put this in 2 segments. You will see me back here this week. And don't forget, another thing I'm doing is I'm figuring out my new schedule when I will be here, likely not on Sundays. It was easy for me to be here on Sundays during the semester, right? Because that was my day. But now that we have summer hours, and another stressful thing is summer hours, which means I'm not working as much at the university that neither endorses nor is affiliated with anything that I do here, right? So there's a lot of stressors going on in my life right now, lots of stressors. And so what I'm hoping for you is that let me look over here what I got going on. What I'm hoping for you is that you see that I experience these things, but also can teach you something from what I learn as I experience these things. Okay, all right, let's move on. So, principles of transformation, and the very first thing on our agenda is, what is the goal of transformation therapy? So let's take a look at that. The purpose or the goal of transformation therapy is to identify the lies that we believe about ourselves and offer them up to a higher power for truth and insight for transformation. Okay? All right, so there's a lot there. Let me just take a few minutes to unpack that then. We've already talked about the 2 lies that we are hoping to uncover through transformational therapy, right? Okay, so we look at transformational therapy as kind of getting to uncovering the different layers of an onion, for example, all right? And so what are we trying to uncover? Well, the very first thing is we're trying to uncover those lies that we believe, right? Okay, so beyond that then, what else does that say? Well, give me a second to get it right in front of me too, even though that seems silly. Okay, and then the second part of this transformational therapy, the purpose of transformation therapy or transformational therapy, is that we then offer these up to a higher power. So, as we begin to uncover those beliefs that we have, right? Those lies that we have, and we begin to uncover them, like I said, just like the layers of an onion. All right, so as we uncover those, just looking over here at all this, as we uncover those, what do? We end up offering them up to a higher power. Now we're going to look at, and we have looked at several examples where this has really worked for decades for programs, like for example, Alcoholics Anonymous, who offer up their inability to control. Oh gosh, all of a sudden I just can't remember that first step. All of a sudden, when I get in front of the camera, it's like all of a sudden some things just pop out of your brain, even if you're trying to remember. The unmanageability of the power. That's what it is. There we go. They are powerless. They are powerless to alcohol, and they admit to being unable to manage their lives because they are powerless. So if you are powerless, how is it then that you begin to believe that you control your outcome? If you admit to being powerless, how is it then that you believe you can control your outcome? In fact, I'm going to end up putting that up on a little slide later on that I want as literally a question, that I'm going to have there as like a question to make sure that you answer that question, right? So how do you believe that you can become powerless and yet somehow change your life, your manageability? What's the answer? You can't. That's the answer that many people have figured out. You cannot control or manage your life when you admit to being powerless. You can't have both. You can't be powerful over something and then admit powerlessness to it. Okay? All right. And so, what does that mean? It means that you then need to hand it over to something outside of yourself, to something beyond your control. But you really want that thing that is outside of yourself, higher power, right? Handing it over, since you're powerless, you're handing it over to something that is more powerful. You also want to kind of be sure that you're handing it over to something that's more powerful, that is also more loving as well, right? Because I don't want to hand my power over. I don't want to say my life has become unmanageable. I don't want to say I'm powerless and I have to hand this over to a higher power if that higher power is not benevolent, if that higher power is not claiming to be love, right? Why would I want to hand my powerlessness over to what? Something evil? Hand my powerlessness over to what, right? Okay, so a couple great concepts there, right? So first of all, one of the great ironies of transformation is that it is not of our power, it is of a higher power. So we cannot necessarily we cannot will this. We have to hand it over to an unseen power, an unseen energy, an unseen drive behind this, an unseen motivation, whatever you want to call it. You can call it there, but that's what you have to hand it over to. Okay? All right. And then for truth and insight and transformation. All right. In truth, there are great subtleties in truth. Understanding truth. I mean, think for example, a judge, right, who has to decide a case about a young man who grew up in abject poverty, who learned violence from a father who beat him, then goes and commits violent acts, right? Okay. Or let's say not so violent. Let's say not so violent, but let's say that goes and steals something, right? Goes and steals something and then tries to sell it, all right? Or goes into a life of drugs because that's all that person has known. That judge who goes and tries cases like this has to look at all of those different facets to the truth, right? All of the different kind of idiosyncrasies to what is considered true, or what is truth, because we know that we are biased. We know that we have biased perspectives, and that we have very limited perspectives. We have very limited insights. So it makes sense, if there is a higher power, that we would hand over some of our, or relinquish our power to a mightier power. So all that we're trying to do here then is we're just trying to explore. All we're trying to do here then is we're just trying to explore the power, the ability of us to be able to rely on something beyond ourselves to actually get us to transform. And again, remember, when we're talking about transformation, we really are talking about something that is grand, not something that is mediocre, not something that can be explained by everyday natural occurrences. No, when we're talking about higher powers, I need to look at myself here, get myself straightened out. When we're talking, there we go. When we're talking about higher powers, well, if we believe that that is a benevolent, kind, higher power, then we should be willing to relinquish our pride, to relinquish our will, for the good of ourselves, right? To that higher power for the good of ourselves. And again, what are we trying to do? We're trying to explore that possibility, because if it's possible, I want a piece of the action. If that's possible, that there is a higher power, and all I have to do is relinquish my will to the higher power in order to reap the benefits, sign me up. I will do that. Okay. So now what we want to do in order to get to transformation is we need to start with step 1. And step 1 is understanding emotions. One of the last things that we want to do when we are experiencing life is compound that experience with some really hard emotions, like sadness, or like grieving, or anger, or bitterness, or sorrow, or pity. We don't want to burden our everyday events with these negative emotions that we would experience. It makes us feel anxious, and it makes us feel sad and depressed. So we don't want to experience them. So what we do is we spend a lifetime trying to avoid the feelings, the negative feelings, trying to suppress the negative feelings, trying to wash over the negative feelings, trying to color them in different ways. When the reality is that we need to experience the emotions. And there are many reasons why, but the emotions are key to transformation. So, during transformation, and for the occurrence of transformation, what do we need? We need to experience our emotions. Now, this is very hard for most of us because, again, what? When we get emotional, we already think of that as being negative, right? And again, many of us have spent our lifetime trying to put aside those emotions. So we don't want to experience them. And so what ends up happening is we can't use those emotions in order to help us transform. until you learn how to experience those emotions. All right? And that's difficult. But let's take a look at why we need to. So here we know we don't want to experience our emotions, but we see that we need to experience our emotions in order to begin to uncover what? Our beliefs. So let's look a little more closely right at that slide there. When we have deep-seated beliefs that can be based in truth, or they don't have to be based in truth. If you truly believe, for example, that you were insulted by somebody, and that person really, truly, the truth of the matter is that person really meant you no harm, really didn't mean to insult you, but you truly believe that that person did slight you and knew that they slighted you and did it on purpose, there would be likely nothing that I could say or do to convince you otherwise. That's a heart belief, is what that is. A heart belief is filled with a lot of emotions. You believe something to your core. Okay? A heart belief is what you came to believe as an outcome of what happened and your interpretations of it. It's both of those things. So it might be grounded in truth, but very often, because we are biased creatures, we have got not 100% spot on perceptions, accurate perceptions of the events. And so what we believe, our heart beliefs, are what we believe happened, whether or not they actually did happen. They are based on events, but they're also based on your interpretations. And those drive your choices. And then the more emotional that the foundation is for your behaviors, those are more likely then to be what we have called triggers. So your heart beliefs are triggering beliefs, or events. Events are triggering beliefs. And that's why we take a look at this emotion trail, because the emotions reveal what is closest and most valuable to your heart, that when challenged, you are triggered. All right, so there's a couple things here that we want to remember. Number one, if you want to get real transformation, what you need to begin to focus on and realize is when your emotions are being triggered. Then what you want to do is focus in on those emotions in order to find out what your heart belief is. Remember, principles of transformation is what I'm teaching you, right? So this is going to help you understand how to cope, but it also helps you understand the concepts related to why these coping mechanisms help transform you, right? What we want to do is we want to see, how does the spirit help engage us in ways that are beneficial to our bodies, our minds, and also our spirits, right? Okay, so number one, what do we want to do? We want to be able to recognize and focus in on our emotions in order to, number two, identify our heart's beliefs. Why? Because those are the things that drive our behaviors, our values, our deep-seated, interwoven belief system that we have. All right? Where do we find it? We find it through our emotions. That's where we find it. So emotions are in transformation prayer at transformationprayer.org, where Ed Smith and his son Joshua Smith has developed this program. What do they say? They say emotions are the smoke that uncover the lies we believe. Okay, all right. Now, let's talk quickly about the emotion of anger, and then that's likely what I'm going to finish with today, and then I will come back on this week, and we will finish this part 2 of this. So let's talk just a little bit about emotions, and what do emotions have to do, and why, let's talk a little bit about anger, and what does anger have to do with our lies that we believe, and why is that an important emotion? Anger is an important emotion. It is the very first emotion that we always focus on whenever it arises in TPM, in Transformation Prayer Ministries. When I'm in Transformation Prayer Ministries, the very first thing that we address is we address anger. Why would we address anger first? The reason why is because anger is an emotion that blocks our ability to hear anything. It blocks our ability to listen. Now, if you think about, for example, any example of somebody or something that you've been angry with, and then try thinking about yourself listening to their side of the story. Especially if you're very angry, right? The more angry you are, the more difficult it is for you to listen to somebody else's side of the story. What do? You're like, why? Because you think you already know what they have to say. I just really like the example and experience that I use with people getting angry, including myself, at God, right? When I get angry at even God, when I say even God because I'm a believer, right? So I get angry at God, and even when I get angry at God, what ends up happening? The same thing. I can't hear him. Why can't I hear him? Because this is my experience. Because I believe I already know what he's going to say. That's the reason why. Because I know he's going to say, forgive that person. Or he's going to say, take on your responsibilities. Or he's going to say, make amends. Or he's going to say, go out of your way. Or he's going to say, volunteer. Or he's going to tell me all these things that I don't want to do. And I'm saying, hey, but what about my issue that you're not paying attention to, right? You're not listening to me. I'm not listening to you. And that's what anger does for us. That's what anger does for us to one another. It stops us from listening. And so therefore, there is going to be no movement if we cannot hear. So the very first thing we get rid of, or try to get rid of, or address, right? We address it in transformational therapy, is we address anger. Now, let's take a look at that. The problems that anger causes when we don't address it. So first of all, anger, once again, what does it do? It makes us feel empowered. And that's the reason why we want to hold on to our anger. In anger, we feel like we have evened the playing field. That our behavior, no matter what it is justified. Because why? Because, well, because we have a whole list of reasons why we feel it's justified, don't we? That's the reason why we're angry. And as we go through our list of justification, we feel more and more empowered. We feel more and more self-righteous. We rationalize our undesirable, unacceptable behaviors. Like I said, so it makes us feel empowered, so we pride ourselves, right? We fill ourselves with pride, dig our heels in, and then this blocks us from hearing anything from the person, God, that the object, whatever it is that we're angry with. And because we cannot hear any other ideas and thoughts but our own, anger keeps us in bondage. It is the emotion that keeps us stagnant in our relationships, stagnant in our jobs, stagnant in making something change, right? It keeps us stuck. Lie number 2, I can't do anything. So anger keeps us stuck, and therefore it provides no escape from the pain that we have. And when there's no escape from the pain that we have, that keeps us in bondage. And so again, this is the reason why anger is the emotion that we want to address first, before we can even consider, can we be transformed? And so, what am I doing? I'm giving you strategies. We are focusing on what our healthy spirit can do for us and how we might be able to approach getting a healthy spirit. Okay, so I will be back with you this week. I don't know what time. I will let you know. I will hopefully likely give you a little bit more of an advance notice. When I'm going to be live this week. But look for, so that I covered the emotions part of it. So then when I come back, we're going to talk more about associations. We're going to talk more about how those turn into heart beliefs. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about then how that turns into our ability to see truth, right? And be transformed. Okay, thank you for joining me. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. Dr. Annette Feravich with Healthy Mind, Body, Spirit. And don't forget that you can find me on the internet at www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. I've got such allergies going on right now, which is something else I might talk to you about a little bit later on. But I did want to say something about the health corner. So let me quick do the health corner for you. There we go. Just had to get the slide. Let me do this health corner for you, and then I'll have another one actually the next time I meet with you as well. So here is Annette's 2-minute health corner. And today's 2-minute health corner is on sunscreen and the importance of sunscreen. And also what I want to talk to you about is not only the importance of sunscreen, but also about Shackley. Oh, there we go. But also about Shackley sunscreen. So a couple things. You'll notice that Shackley sunscreen is a bit more expensive than most of the other sunscreens out there. But let's just take a quick look at this. First of all, you've got a sunscreen that is 30 SPF. And you also know that it's made by Shackley. And don't forget, one of the most important things today is getting a product from a name that you can trust. That's the most important thing. We get things so easily. We get things so easily and so quickly on the internet, and we forget that some of this stuff comes to us from countries that have no regulation and they don't care about what they put in their products. At Shackley, it's American made, which means that it has to follow U.S. regulations, and it's a name that you can trust. It's been around for over 100 years, and they made the first multivitamin. And now let's take a look at their sunscreen. So 30 SPF. It's more expensive than most sunscreens, although you are likely to know that sunscreen is really quite expensive. And so this is, I'm going to get the price. I know I think it's close to $38, but I'll get the price for you there. Now let's see though how much you end up using for this, right? So first of all, it's a name you can trust. It's not watered down, right? And here, this is how much I just put on my finger of the sunscreen. All right. Now what I want you to look at is, I just want you to look at, first of all, how thick that is. I can't do it over there. I should have done it with my other hand. How thick that sunscreen is. And so when I go to put it on my shoulders, right, or on my face, I can end up covering a lot more area than I normally would with other sunscreens that still are running $15 to $20 for other sunscreens that are just simply watered down. But also, you can be sure that this product doesn't have things like lead in it. It doesn't have things like arsenic. It doesn't have things like heavy metals in the sunscreen. And lots of those are byproducts of getting sunscreen from other countries that do not regulate what goes in their products. All right, the other thing I want to tell you about sunscreen though is this. The other thing I want to tell you about sunscreen is this. We need vitamin D, and in particular, we need vitamin D here in Michigan. And you cannot get vitamin D from the sun when you are wearing sunscreen. And so what you need to do is make sure that for a short time, skin is either exposed to the sun, or if you're worried about that, and by the way, we need some more, look around. People are white as ghosts. We need a little bit more sun exposure. But if you are really concerned about it, make sure that you are getting your vitamin D supplement. You are able to get your vitamin D supplement through Shackley for only $10, and that is D3. You don't need an extra K, and you don't need somebody telling you that you need the extra K to pay for in a very expensive D supplement. So again, use sunscreen. Make sure it's a quality sunscreen from a name that you can trust, so it goes a long way for you, and it's worth the money that you spend, that you don't jeopardize your health in other ways because you're using a cheaper product. Okay? And then also make sure that you still get your vitamin D if you don't get your exposure to the sun because you use sunscreen, right? Okay, and hopefully you're still getting outside, even if that's the reason why you're not getting exposure to the sun is because you're using sunscreen. Whoops. Hopefully you're still getting exposure. Hopefully you're still getting outside. Okay, that's all that I have for today for our 2-minute corner. Thank you for listening. And I am Dr. Annette Feravich with Healthy Mind, Body, Spirit. And you can find me on the internet at www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. Join me this week. I will let you know when I will have part 2 of our emotions, associations, and truth.